Hey, I got a surprise for you.
What's that?
Miami. So, never opened the show Read the Room before with Led Zeppelin, and by God, why haven't I? Okay.
Well, you're going to have to definitely do that in the future. I would also suggest, yes, we can go over those in production notes, but
Little audio input, perhaps.
yeah,
Um, One of my favorite albums, Physical Graffiti, 1975. Literally every track on this album will blow the doors off of anything, anywhere, anytime. It's so damn good. But Custard Pie is a great song. It's a tad salacious and worked perfectly when I was a youngster when it came out. Anyway, how are you? How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. What I was going to say is, do you want to try that opening again? And this time we play the video so that you can hear the audio really good.
Let's do that before we end.
Okay.
Let's do it
And
that way.
what song did you want to play?
That's a song called Custard Pie off of Physical Graffiti.
Yeah, it's the
Because you're the tech master.
mhm,
The room here on the No Filter Network.
the No Filter Network.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, let's get to this shitnik basket of
Oh man, can you know the smell is behind us now because the DNC is done with their little happy joy festival,
well,
right?
yeah, the smell is behind us because we're not going back. Okay, we're going
Right.
forward. We're not going back. The
We're
shit
not
is
gonna do
behind.
it. Don't you love how people, grown adults, especially politicians, have intellectual amnesia, forgetting that they're actually the ones in power right now? Not going back to what? What are you talking about? 1% inflation versus nine? Is 6% inflation the rate of inflation except 22? What are you talking about there, Carmela? So yeah, she was very non-specific, but it's hilarious.
It's hilarious and frightening at the same time. I came away with one take that from this past DNC. I don't know how many Americans actually watched the Democratic National Convention as we welcome our brother in arms, Mr. Don Juan himself, the 2024 man. Um, they won. Democrats won. They knocked it out of the park with this convention. There was no 68, which is something that you had been selling for better part of a year, and I have thought as well.
Mhm.
Thought that there was going to be a lot more disruption by the wild wing of the Democrat Party, and they were pretty unimpressive in terms of their uh,
Disruptions and
provocation.
whatnot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what call it escalation is the term they use for looting and rioting and burning. That's the technical term inside activist
Mhm.
communities. But they
I
did,
give a lot of credit to the Chicago police for that, quite
yeah.
frankly.
And the Chicago police hammered that down very
You know,
well.
it's
And
interesting 'cause I'm wondering if they broke
they
down a blood
literally,
barrier
uh,
fence. You're gonna
they
get to that. Okay, sorry.
literally,
Go ahead. But they fixed it like that. That was badass.
yes, they literally escorted them. They walked them around. which great. That was what should have been done. It was a peaceful protest, but I'm going to make a statement that
Mhm.
I was prepared to make a statement until I saw that $5 trillion number that she's doing with new tax rates. If the if the election was today, Camilla, uh, Hansy McGee, Carmela,
See,
Eric,
McGee.
yeah, Hand Paul, she would win if the election were today.
Mhm.
I truly believe that. I'm not 100% convinced that she's not going to win because I think America isn't quite done with identity politics. And it's almost like this has to be the last nail in the coffin before people get it. Like, how many more? There's always going to be another ceiling to shatter. And I don't mean to drove on. Like, what's next? A trans president? Like, that's really all that's left is a LGBTQ themed president.
I think it's a trans former astronaut who went to Mars and came back successfully president, but that's just in a fantasy world. But please, pray, continue.
Eat, pray, love. I pray it doesn't happen, but
Right.
I don't think we're done with it. I think that we're in the age of woman right now, and women are emotional creatures. And as they have campaigned to convince men to be eunuchs and low T's, they're out in full force. Like,
Hence soy boys, right?
yeah, hence the soy boy. The macho male is quote unquote under attack. Um, we don't exist in the numbers that we once did. And they're proud of that. They're proud of the Doug Emhoffs of the world. And I don't know if you caught a clip of that lesbian Harry Potter that was standing next to him. Uh,
Hard to miss on social media. I didn't really watch virtually any of that DNC nonsense, but yeah, it's hard to miss.
yeah. Um,
Lesbian Harry Potter.
I mean, she looks exactly like you would think a new modern lesbian Democrat would look, like her
Mhm.
bi-curious phase in college extended into her late 20s. Um, that's the face. And
Okay,
I don't
we're just
think,
gonna call you Draws for now from now on, Jeremy Piven's character in PCU, okay? Because that's you, alright?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Um,
Fabulous film for anybody that hasn't seen it.
I thought Draws was John Favreau.
Yeah, that's Jon Favreau. No, Jeremy Piven's character. No, Gutter was, Jon Favreau.
Oh, that's right.
But
Okay.
don't be that guy. Don't be the guy that wears the T-shirt of the band you're going to see, alright?
Thank you for correcting me on that. That's why you get paid the big bucks because that's
Cinephile over
shame
here.
that I didn't remember that it was Draws and Gutter.
So
Um,
good. Now I'm gonna have to watch it today.
such if you can find it, yeah, send me a
What?
copy,
Oh,
please.
I have it on DVR from before they ripped it from YouTube, and I also have a disc of it too.
I think that's on purpose too, and I don't want to
Yeah, it
sidestep
pisses
this
me
argument.
off.
We could
It's
talk about
really
it
good.
another time, but that is the most accurate film and still true to the times,
Bro,
and you won't see it,
1993 is when it came out.
Mhm.
and it still holds its chops. But
What don't we eat? Why don't we eat it? Oh, it's so good.
yeah,
Moonbeam, right? Fucking David Spade playing a little preppy guy.
who are Jews?
He goes, he's knocking on the door. He goes, "Who can I be, BD?" He goes, he goes, "Who killed Jesus Christ? Who are the Jews? Open up, sucko!" Right? Brilliant. Absolutely
Spade
brilliant.
magic.
Hilarious.
What is a blucher?
Right.
Um,
And they did the whole Senate confirmation thing, you
mhm.
know, with Gutter. It's like he's takes one hit, he knows how to carve and everything. Anyway,
Well,
we're getting far afield from that, but however, let's take a U-turn and go back to your comment, and then let Don say hello this afternoon and this morning.
yeah, and I'm interested to hear your guys' takes because I truly believe that the election was today that uh, Hand Paul would win because I think we're still an emotional reacting society that enjoys the theatrics. Like we'll go into more why I think that, but what were
Mhm.
your guys' takeaways from the DNC? And I'll start with Don since he's
Don?
been patiently waiting.
Well, I've actually watched a number of these things, and having been a Democrat for a lot of years and gone through this same cycle,
We
we're
forgive
talking
you.
about that's okay. That's fine. When I voted Republican, when I converted and changed parties in 2012, I'd already been a Democrat for 40 years, and I posted on Facebook, the end of my time with the Democrats. I'm no longer, part of the party. And then I went on to say, you know, 40 years a slave, now I'm done. So,
Mhm.
I've been through this. And we were talking about, this cycle and certainly this Democratic convention being like 1968. I think this particular convention is a lot like 1988 because you had Democrats and they were all
Mhm.
giddy about beating up good old wimpy George Bush. And I can
Mhm.
still recall, Ann Richards giving that speech where she said,
Yep.
"Oh, yeah, George Bush, he can't help it. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth and all that
Mhm.
stuff." And the Democrats came out of that convention united, excited, and Michael Dukakis was up by 10 points. So, you know, I and I think because we have so much media nowadays and social media and everything else, and I've been subject to it as everybody else. We tend to get a little antsy. We tend to think, oh my God, it's going to be this. No, it's not. I still believe that I believe in the wisdom of the American voters
Mhm.
altogether in total. At the end of the day, I do not see. I've seen a lot of Democratic candidates and a lot of Republican candidates. You always get a sense that, well, maybe this guy could win, even though I don't like him. I don't get that feeling with Kamala Harris and what's his name. Um, they're so inauthentic. They're so artificial. I just think and again, this is taking into account feelings about Trump. I get all that. I've experienced them, so I know how that works. The problem is, I do not see, I cannot see, I will never see how voters can vote into power those two, and that
Mhm.
one in particular. That
Mhm.
speech he gave last night was so vapid, so just, it's like I'm looking for substance so I can have something to genuinely fear or be concerned about. I didn't
Yep.
hear it. I heard a lot of
I'm a
regurgitation of
style guy,
Trump.
and I looked at her outfit, and I was like,
Right.
"Who archived, the wardrobe from Working Girl?" Okay? I mean, come on, lady. Anyway, sorry, Don. I
No,
was
no,
just like,
no.
"You
Y-
wore that?"
Yeah, you look for something. They keep telling us, oh, everything around her is so exciting and it's new and it's great and we're having joy and everything. And I'm looking at and again, I don't like to comment on what women wear, but it was, to be even charitable, drab, which
Yeah.
matched the tone and really the content of her speech because it's really said nothing. It
Do you know
made
what
you
that
think.
outfit accentuated? The
Hmm,
wrinkles on her neck,
well, that's true. Yeah.
okay? I mean, you might as well have little lights underneath there going boop right up to her neck and just see every curve. I'm like, "Oh, okay. That's what you want."
Yeah, I got into it this morning with a good friend of mine on Facebook because I was talking about giddy Democrat. He's predicting a landslide. And I reminded him, I said, you know what? And I went and got off New York Times the headline that they had following the Democrat convention in '88, The caucus widens lead,
Mhm.
and I'm
Yeah,
saying that's what's really going on here. As to whether or not she could ultimately win, I said anything's possible.
sure.
But I said you're going to have a large chunk of voters who are just going to suspend reality and what's in their best interest to vote for this image and these feelings. And I said it's just not how it works. At the end of the
So
day, the American vote is going.
two things there. One is math, and the other is
Mhm.
context. Again, conventions, August, late July, right? Everybody's on vacation, like we've talked about before, then put their kids in school, yada, yada, yada. We're on the precipice. I think the buses started coming like Monday of this week in our
Yep.
county. So kids are just getting back into school. College kids are just moving back into their dorms. One of our good friends' son is moving back into his on Sunday. That's on purpose, right? People settle in, they start to figure out where they're going to be, where they aren't. That's the same thing that happened with Dukakis. What Americans decided in '88 is, yeah, we want a Reagan third term. So my old boss, her Bush 41, boom, they chose him. Not just because of the helmet and the tank thing, but Dukakis was boring as shit. Nice guy, met
Yeah.
him a bunch of times
Hmm.
when I got
Yep.
back up here. Really good guy. All right. Boring as a loafer. Okay. Um, they also looked at the economy, jobs, debt, foreign wars, deficit, their future. And just like some of the stuff I shared with you guys, I think that we will pivot toward that uh, end of next week, beginning of the week after when Labor Day is over. Economic plan exploded, which I'll go into deeper later. 800,000 fake jobs, which does
Right.
not account for, gentlemen, the addition of revisions downward for 22
Hmm.
months of all those other jobs. So we're talking about 1.3, maybe 1.4 million fake jobs. That is a huge hit to the economy. Higher taxes, which people will not accept. This broad wants to raise taxes on literally everything, and then is somehow for the middle class. Middle class won't have a damn dime left. Okay, and then you've got obviously our love for our veterans because today is the fourth year anniversary of Afghanistan and the loss of the
Yep.
13 service members. Right. Anyway, that's just kind of a contrast, but I think that's where we are right now, personally.
Yeah. There's a couple little reasons why I am growing more and more concerned, and I get it.
Excuse me.
There's a lot of time left on the clock. Um, as assistant coach, volunteer coach Walls once said,
He's a master sergeant or master commander or whatever the hell he
yeah,
Right.
is.
he's the head coach that led his team to a state championship. Oh, wait. No, he's not. Um,
Did he actually say that, Rick?
regardless, he plays that clown of he's Uncle Waltz, if anything. He's that clown of an uncle that gets handsy at a at every dinner. Like if you're a girl, you don't want to be near him because he's the guy that really hug you and you know he thinks you're best friends and he's just always in your territorial bubble and he's really animated and just he's more like a hype man than anything, which is exactly what she wanted. She's a
Hmm.
he's a he's culturally appropriated perfect for the white guy that they want. A white hype man for the Midwest that will sell this new moderate Kamala plan. But you guys talked about media, the headlines. We live in the age of media. And as the media is is increasingly more crooked and clear on who they want to win. That's the difference between 88 is we didn't have a media that was so bipartisan. We
Yep.
didn't have like tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember seeing the RNC on ABC, on
No.
Fox, on NBC, on CBS, on PBS primetime for
Nope.
the week. Well, that happened for the DNC.
Yep.
Yeah,
They
and they
got
pissed
prime
off
time
all these
slot.
football viewers in Kansas City yesterday. Did you see that?
Yep.
God, it's like, how stupid are you
And
people?
that's the frustrating part. Don said he trusts the American people, and I don't. I do not trust them because we're in the age of woman where people are too focused on shattering still. Like it's still at the top. And this isn't to knock on women because there are plenty of women out there that are shattering all on their own and they don't need to use that platform. But there are
Mhm.
power players that use that ideology to push ahead. And
So I like that.
you know what they look like. Okay, so
Mhm.
we've got a media,
Mhm.
RFK Jr. RFK Jr. probably going to announce his support for Trump and
In
drop out,
90 minutes.
which we will get to later on.
Mhm.
That's going to hurt Trump. That's not going to help him. Those
So
people,
I disagree,
the
but I wanna
people,
hear why.
okay, yeah, and I'm interested to hear why this is going to help because he gave the Democrat moderate never Trumpers an option. They're
Excuse me.
never Trumpers, so they at least weren't going to vote for those people.
Mhm.
But now they are because they're never Trumpers. So instead of RFK pulling from that party, he's either going to be stalemate, do nothing, or he's going to give them votes. The other point is the Fed. The Fed's going to be lowering interest rates,
Mhm.
and they will be able to use that as proof that the economy is getting better as they continue to lie to the people, you know, the 800,000 jobs that didn't exist. They're able to get away with this stuff, and that's the concern. Is
Okay.
Americans are so
Alright.
stupid. So
Okay.
please illuminate me
I'll
why I
disabuse a little bit, but also offer my opinion. Don, you tell me if I'm crazy, and also please do the same. So, you guys have known me long enough. One of my mottos from one of my favorite economists, Dr. Edward Deming, is "In God we trust, all others must bring data." Right? It's like, tell me your opinion. That's great. Now show me the data because I want to see it. I want to see it empirically, etc. One of my other favorite economists who is on the card today for our show, No Free Lunch, is Milton Friedman because there is no free lunch. Everything in a in a free market enterprise system costs something. Ain't nothing free. You bought the box of cereal, you pulled out the toy for your kid. Guess what? You forgot the predicate. You bought the box of cereal. You paid money for it. The toy ain't free, right? It's nice. It's cute. You got an extra toy. Didn't work. It ain't free. The numbers for Harris and what she's proposing simply don't lie. She is too expensive. She is too costly, both in terms of human capital as well as global markets and capital, for the chaos around the world that has ensued since Biden and Harris took office almost 4 years ago. um, the world itself can't continue to do that. Russia's got 70% inflation, you guys. They ain't going to be prosecuting
Yep.
the Ukraine war for 2 more fucking years. It ain't going to happen. Okay. they're going to pull the brakes on it, or someone's going to find Putin somewhere and assassinate him. And they're going to take over and they're going to shut this thing down because they can't, it's intolerable. And so whatever the Fed does in Jackson Hole today, Rick, with an announcement, just words into a camera, is not going to lower the price of gas, housing, eggs, food, bacon, energy, etc. Anytime soon, and sure as hell not in the next 74 days. And people know that. So the information-free rhetoric of the last 4 days in Chicago is extremely light on specifics, while people, again, are just barely listening, still on vacation, just put the kid in school, etc. Like I said, right? Post Labor Day. So the whatchamacallit, the debate is the 10th. Congress comes back the 9th. That's when people are going to click into gear and go, what did she say? After the debate. So let's call it September 11. Ooh, coincidental.
Okay.
We could have another September 11 in the Democrat Party. How cute. Just like in 2016. Here's the numbers real quick to end this part of my explanation. 2016, Donald Trump won by 77,000 votes over Mrs. Clinton. 4 years ago, Biden won by only 44,000 votes. So let's assume that for a moment that in the RFK milieu, and believe me, Trump's people have seen the numbers inside RFK's camp. These conversations have been going on since approximately May of this year with RFK's people. It didn't just happen while I was in Wyoming last week. So they've seen the numbers, they've seen the polling, they know what their internals look like, they've shared that information. Pardon me. And so let's assume that the mods you were just talking about only represent 18% of the total vote number that RFK has, but that the real number he's going after are disaffected Ds, independent voters, and that chunk, let's say that represents 54%. Let's say that total vote basket is about, let's be nice to RFK because I like his family's legacy. Let's just say it's 1 million votes. That's a hell of a lot, right? It's also 6 times higher than what Trump won by in 16, and much higher. I get into politics, so I don't have to do math, Don, so you can do it for me. Than 44,000 loss in 2020. And so Trump only needs to have a segment this size. Oh, look at that. That's for you, Rick. That is, call it 110,000, 120,000 votes in 6 or 7 of these 6 to 7 swing states, with a little buffer over in the West and maybe a little buffer up in New Hampshire, yada, yada, yada. That's the math. Those are the numbers that the Trump team are looking at in saying, okay, we'll risk all of our credibility and say, come on in, RFK Jr., to the MAGA tent, right? You've already seen the Democrats come out yesterday and go, well, he was MAGA from the beginning. This is RFK. And so he's MAGA now, and it'll be MAGA later, and all this bullshit, which is just childish comms BS. And that's what they're looking at. So I think there will be a net benefit to Trump because of the cohort of the total basket of voters and the ones they're only going after. That's why.
I hear a very long answer for.
Well, it's detailed because it's specific about what they will get versus what
you
they won't get.
So I'm confused. Are you saying that Trump's going to get more of those voters than Kamala?
I think he'll get a net benefit of more voters, than Harris will, number one.
Be basic. You don't need to use net benefit, this or that. Is he going to get more
he's going to
voters
get
than Kamala? Yes or
he's
no?
going to get a net benefit of
Yes or
specific
no, he's
votes
going to get more
that is
votes
that
than.
is more than she will get,
Stop
100%.
politicking. Stop
100%.
being a politician. Just
No.
is
This is
he going to
statistical.
get more votes than Kamala?
He is
Yes.
going to get disproportionately more votes than her. The answer is absolutely yes, or there is no way they would be doing this on the Trump side. No way.
Okay. So you think
So
that
again, the soy boys
we're
and
going
the
to get
folks that you talked
more
about,
votes? Yes.
yeah, that
So
would
you're
go to
saying
her
that RFK voters
is
are
this
going
long.
to go to Trump
Look,
more than
I'm gonna
Kamala?
use fingers because you like fingers. Is this big? That's what her volume's gonna be. Trump's is this big.
Okay.
So they
There you
eclipse
go.
whatever she'll get. That's it.
So the answer to the question is he's going to get
100%
more
yes.
votes from
100% yes.
RFK than Kamala.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna be
Thank
fun.
you.
It's gonna be
That's
fun to watch.
all I needed to hear, and that's all the audience needed to
No,
hear. Thank
in
you.
Read the
I
Room, we
love
like to
the
be
detailed
specific.
explanation, but when it comes down to it, sometimes we just need to get to
Yeah,
the
well, and
simplicity.
here in Read the Room, we like to be specific and we like data. So the
Yes,
data
we do
leans in
like
this
data.
direction. And
But
Yeah,
if
when you look
I'm
at what
having
he did,
difficulty
hang on,
understanding the
hold on,
answer,
hang on a second. What he did with Kemp just recently, he got a Georgia peach kiss. Now they're buddies again.
mhm,
Well, you can check Georgia off the list now for Carmella. Bye bye.
ching
Bye
ching.
bye. Anyway, Don, chime in there, bro.
yeah. RFK's benefit to Trump, I think, is overall to me it's negligible. I've never been a fan of his. However, his value, as far as I can see it at this point, is he stems the media momentum for Kamala Harris. They have to talk about something else today, the day after the supposed grand convention and everything else, because they're
Mm-hmm.
poised. They're still in, the joy and happiness and love and happiness and whatever. And like I said, this at least blunts it to the point where they have to say things that they otherwise weren't prepared to have to say. So I see the benefit there. I do
Mm-hmm.
think I would say it is more significant because I just heard about this morning that there is some sort of coming together moment between Trump and Kemp. And to Kemp's credit, he's never
Mm-hmm.
been negative. He accepted,
Mm-hmm.
the barrage of insults, but he was focused. And now I guess someone's gotten to Trump to tell him, hey, look, you want to win? You know what? Make nice with this guy, or at least stop the nonsense, so that we can at least get those, to borrow the phrase, 11,780 votes that we didn't get last time. You know,
Correct.
I think that, and I believe in numbers. I mean, I get all the other stuff because
Mm-hmm.
you just can get bombarded with feelings and emotions and
With
trends
rhetoric.
and stuff.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's 270.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris can get 100 million votes.
That's
If you don't
right.
get to 270,
Yeah.
ain't gonna matter.
Who gives a
And
shit about the popular vote? I could care less. So
and they will.
RFK's got
I'm sorry.
2.2 million people that follow him on Instagram. I haven't even looked at Twitter yet. I'm going to assume that RFK's universe is 4 million votes. Just going to
Yes.
throw that out there. It could be 30% high, it could be way under, right? And half of those individuals come out, right? 2 million. Then Trump only gives a shit about 300,000 of them, and half of those come out. 150,000 is what he grabs his little arms around, right? Still eclipses whatever Carmella may or may not acquire from that gaggle. And it still is twice the amount of what he beat her by in 2016 and almost three and a half times the amount of what he lost to by Biden. And if you just go by that math, and I think it'll be more that outcome than it will be 2020 because it's a female Rick. I absolutely believe that 100%. So he'll need that 70, 80 million, 110 million buffer in addition to what he's going to do. and with a surrogate, allegedly, we'll know in an hour and 20 minutes, like RFK out there in his milieu and universe, that part of the Democrat Party and those that are with him, which are some fairly powerful individuals and donors, have already decided can't have her. Not good. We'll just deal with Trump for 4 years if he wins, and then we'll hammer him in 28. That kind of thing. We'll see. We'll see
So
about
Well,
we will. Now, do we know what states specifically endorse RFK the most?
that. I can't tell you that off the top of my head. I think that he
Those might,
is in most swing states, by the way,
because
which
those
really
might
matter.
be the some important numbers to look at to see
Mhm.
how much he's actually going to affect them and which ones in which states are the never Trumpers, because
Yeah.
that's where I think that it's going to be a
I'll
disservice.
I'll
But
do an analysis of that. I'll make sure that we talk about that next time. Like, for instance, he didn't get on the ballot in New York because they
right.
used political chicanery and kept him
Mhm.
off the friggin' ballot, which is lame, but whatever. But
Yeah,
in the swing states that matter, he's actually on the ballot in those, which is interesting.
yeah. So time will tell. I wish that I believed the number, statistics, logic
Excuse me.
argument. I just don't think that we're there yet. I don't think that America has bottomed out enough for it to be done. And I it's all going to hinge on the debate.
Yeah.
Everything's going to hinge on the debate, or
Mhm.
maybe debates. We'll see if it's debates plural. But if and Trump's already going in with one arm tied behind his back. And what I mean by this is he put on the performance of a lifetime with Biden. He absolutely destroyed that man, destroyed his political career. He got ousted as the
Mhm.
candidate for the Democrats. They
Mhm.
literally shivved him in the back and tossed him out.
Fuck out.
That was a masterclass.
Excuse me.
There's no way he's going to do that to Kamala. There's no way Hand Paul is going to do as bad as Biden. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to do well per se, but she's a good politician. She is such a wonderful liar. Like, she has made a career lying. And when all she has to do is give short, succinct answers and lie, and lie and lie and lie and lie, and the media doesn't press her hard enough on her flip flopping and why she's gone from A to B, she's going to be able to get away with it more than Biden's age. Like, Biden's
Maybe.
age
Maybe.
versus the the American public's ability to sniff out a lie or to actually care. Like, the, to watch Johnny this week on Waters, his highlight reel, which I knocked him the other day, and I withdraw that completely because he fucking killed it.
He's good. Yeah, he's good. I
Absolutely
like that kid.
ruthless and fearless. He went
Mhm.
right
And
into the
he's like
dragons.
this big. He's like that tall. You could like he needs rocks in his pockets on a windy day. So I
And
give him a lot of props for that shit.
absolutely. And Peter Ducey, he tanked. He cannot do those kind of interviews at all. He is not quick on his feet. He's more of a read from the note card and kind of speak sort of guy. Johnny, he gets to the point and he shoots right back at him. And
That's
he
because he's
got,
not from Kansas like Peter Ducey is.
yep.
No
And
offense to
the
Kansas.
fear of Democrat power players
Mhm.
unwilling to talk about policy. Like, did you
Right.
see Mark Hamill's answer when he was asked what her policies are, am I supposed to talk about policy?
Wait, the
Are
shrooms are
you
kicking in.
are you kidding me? Like,
Well, let me address
why are we
something.
here? Why are we here if we're not
I know, I
learning
know.
about policy? Every single one of Carmela's supporters, none of them could talk
I
about
know.
policy. And
You
their
like football, right?
their slogan of we're not going back, we're going forward is going to be the new answer for anytime somebody questions Kamala about
Yeah.
flip-flopping. They're
Yeah,
just
it'll
going
be
to say,
"Do
we're
what,
not
though?
going back, we're going forward.
Do what?" But you like football, right?
I love football.
I know you do. So, a DNC or an RNC convention is the, cheerleaders on the field before the game.
Yeah.
The game, the halo has been removed as of today, right? And again, we're still in summer, yada, yada, yada. People aren't focused. They will be in a few weeks. The reality of not answering questions and policy prescriptions, which every American is used to hearing out of a politician's mouth, instead of, oh, I will get to that after the election, is not going to fly anymore. That's going to be dead as disco in about 8 to 10 days, right? So they have to have specifics. They don't have any other choice. And what is the day today? The 23rd. So we have 31 days in August. We got 8 days left. In 18 days, she'll be standing across the stage from a guy who let her boss talk and destroy himself. And that debate is going to be somewhere between that one and less combative than the debate he had with her when he said, "And I'd put you in jail." Okay, because he's not going to say that with Carmela, right?
Hopefully.
So she is, and I'm going to digress from what you said. She is a politician who is comfortable when the script is in front of her and everything has been taken care of ahead of time. She is a horrible retail politician. She can't go out on the street and talk to people. She has to go into Permanente Brothers with actors and clear out real people who were watching football at the time in Pittsburgh. And the same thing in a Sheetz's gas station, which is, for those of you that don't live on the East Coast, Sheetz's is kind of like the Union Oil or Atlantic Richfield Oil Company gas station, Shell Oil of the West Coast, right? So when she finally does that, then she'll show the American public that she has retail political skills, because she doesn't. She absolutely does not. Not in the Senate, not in the White House, not so far on the campaign trail, and sure as hell not in California gubernatorial and judicial politics when she was AG, because all those judges were bought and paid for by the Democrat Party, right?
Which the
So
media is bought and paid for
can't
by
go
the
after it.
Democrat Party, so they're
But
going.
they will, buddy. They will keep doing that no matter what. But I will say this: Kristen Welker, you know who that is? NBC
Mhm.
News. She took over at Meet the Depressed, right? At Meet the Press, she said, and that's why I put it in my notes today, that Harris is Biden. She's no different than Biden. That woman who has been up in Donald Trump's grill like this for 8 years, right? Just said that there's no difference between him and her, Biden Harris. That is an amazing career risk. And that is, to me, as an insider and a professional, another clue that the media is starting to, I said this last time when we talked, starting to pull away from Harris because this campaign isn't going the way it should be. And we'll see. We still got 74 days. But that wasn't, I was like, I went, what?
Yeah,
She said,
there's
"What?" I was like, "Whoa."
there's her and that other guy that's on CNN
CNN has done it. Mhm.
that have been asking some hard questions, which
Yeah. What's the
uh,
difference? Yeah,
I'm.
yeah. Go ahead.
It's great to get to applaud journalists being actual journalists and asking hard questions. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how sad it is. Like, we're having to pat these little journalists on their tuchuses and put a gold star on their lapels when they ask real questions. Now, one thing that I think has been understated and I think is also hurting the Trump campaign is it's a bad ticket. Missed when he nominated JD Vance. And I said it when it happened, and I'll say it again. JD Vance is not likable. People do not like JD Vance in the middle, and that's where the race is won. He is going out, to his credit, and he's barnstorming, and he's kissing babies and shaking hands, and that's a huge part of the game. I'm not sure that he will be a positive for the Trump campaign. Now, I could be wrong.
Mhm.
He has done nothing so far to show me, like, that's the guy of the future. That's the guy I want to replace Trump.
That's not his job right now. His job is to contrast between the top of the ticket and the bottom of the ticket on the other side. And he is doing that, whether you like him or not. That's all he needs to do right now. He's
But
prosecuting arguments in contrast to what they aren't doing and also what they have proposed or allegedly proposed. Because you're really good at
I
this
get
on the show. I want you to pull down the Harris policy prescriptions on their website. They don't exist. Anyway, that right now and where we are in the campaign, Rick, that's exactly what he's supposed to be doing.
so
Square
you
peg,
think Vance
square
is
hole.
a good vice president candidate?
Say again?
You think Vance is a good vice president candidate?
I think he's fulfilling the role he's supposed to. I still would have preferred Glenn Youngkin. I've told you that before.
Okay. Don
He's my
Juan?
Yeah, well, you remember my preference, and I still
guy.
think that you know,
I'm biased.
uh, Huckabee Sanders was my choice, and for
Mhm.
some of the more obvious reasons. Again, gender, I think, will play a part, inescapable. But I will say this much about Vance, because it is easy to get caught up in the moment and the echoing of whatever in the media. Uh, I think that Vance will show his worth during the debate. And again, I can't help it. It's just a function of age or what have you. But I do see these parallels with 1988. They really stand out strong.
Yeah.
Everybody thought, and again, I was on the other side in '88, and I
Mhm.
thought, this Dan Quayle guy, oh, they're going to crush this guy. Who the hell? It's like you got a weak, wimpy George Bush and Dan Quayle who cannot spell potato. I mean, so I get you can. It's easy to get into the media, whatever, and I remember that debate, and everybody thought that Lloyd Benson was going to cream this guy, and to his credit, Dan Quayle was consistent, and he followed the Republican message. If J.D. Vance does that in this debate, I think fears or concerns about him being on the ticket amongst Republicans will go away, and I think that he'll make a point about the shortcomings, no pun intended, of the other guy. I think that again, these things have not been explored because they haven't said anything. Now all of a sudden they're going to have to face off, and they're actually going to have to answer real questions. And I do think, while there may not be a Bernie Shaw moment in this series of debates,
Mhm.
the media knows that they have to ask some questions, some
Good call.
serious policy questions, and neither one of these folks, particularly given where they stand off on the extreme left, will be capable of making a centrist argument they would want to make. They are tied to the statements they've made in the past, the positions they've taken already, and again, I don't care who the moderators are, they're going to have to ask them about the war in the Middle East. They're going to have to ask them about, you know, 2020 and George Floyd and all that stuff. You know what? for all the histrionics and everything else, and all the enthusiasm, I don't think either one of these people can answer the questions convincingly, and I think they will expose themselves. And one last point, though, like and Trump, in his debate against Biden, to me it was kind of a walkover. I think Biden in that debate was like beating a cadaver because he really wasn't there. He did not bring anything that was going to enhance or make his position better. I do think that Trump and I criticize him all the time. I think in the last week, I think he's starting to finally grasp it. Hey, you know what? If I don't get to issues and constantly talk issues, I'm
Mhm.
going to lose.
Yep.
So I think he's getting it. We will see what happens. I feel better about his prospects at this debate upcoming, as long as he doesn't veer off into where he can likely go. If
Yep.
he
Did you
talks
see him?
about,
Did you see him at the border yesterday, you
yeah,
guys?
hmm
Did you see him with Rachel Morin's mother and with Jocelyn? I worked on the Jocelyn Nunnery bill that was posted in the Senate and the House and end of last month. I got emotional seeing a Donald Trump that I know friends of mine that spend time with him know that this guy is that gentle of a human being that he never shows us. Rick doesn't see it. You don't see it. I typically don't see it. I've only glanced at it a few times, right? But other friends of mine are like, no, he's a real human being, right? Granddad, grandkids, yada yada yada. When he walked back away from the podium as Rachel Morin's mom was coming up, and he goes, "Sweetheart," he goes, "we don't want this to happen again," you know. And he gave her a hug, and they hugged each other, and he gave her a kiss on the cheek, and then she went up to talk, and then the same thing with Jocelyn Nunnery's family, right? That humanism is contrasted again. That's what campaigns are about, contrasting on issues with Harris's pre-planned, chosen adventure forward, no extemporizing.
Yep.
Kamala she can't even extemporize in the middle of a boring ass Senate hearing, Rick.
I get
Don.
it. I
Okay. And it's like she doesn't have that muscle in her, and neither did she. And that's gonna be her part of her downfall.
and
well,
and
I
some
do
somebody to me
have
wrote,
I do have some hope thanks to Jake Tapper and the way that he handled the interview. I'm being serious.
Is he gonna do that, or I thought
He was
little
moderating.
Stephanopoulos was gonna do it?
He was a fair. That's the question. Okay, Tapper gave a decent moderation of that debate. Like,
Oh, you're talking about the Trump Biden.
right.
yeah,
That's
the
right. Yeah,
Trump
that
Biden
was on
debate,
CNN.
Tapper
Right.
did
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
job.
yeah.
And if that Tapper
Got it.
shows up to the debate, then everything that you guys have said about Kamala that we all know here is going to be exposed. Now, the
Mhm.
election is going to be about dreamers versus doers. Okay.
There you go.
Doers who know what works, know what the policies are, know what it takes to succeed, and stay within the lines. All right. This is what it takes. You may not like it, but here it is. Here's the blueprint. You will succeed. You'll have a good life. You'll have a roof over your head. You'll have a family. You'll have a few extra dollars in your pocket. Dreamers, on the other hand, are the ones who will throw caution to the wind because they're unsatisfied with their circumstances and will try anything new, no matter how bad it is, no matter how many times it's failed. This is going to be the time that it works. I'm going to dream as big as I want to dream, and caution be damned. This time it's going to work. And we'll see which one comes out on top. Now,
Mhm.
just a little quick side note too. The corruption of the power parties, the power party Democrats. Okay. Who are the last two Republican presidents before Biden, or pardon me, before Trump.
Bush and Bush.
Bush and Bush.
Mm-hmm.
Were any Bushes at the Republican National Convention?
No.
When do you ever hear about Bushes showing up for these types of events? Never.
Maybe before Donald Trump or after?
After.
Never.
Never. But how many old Democrats, previous presidents, candidates, what have you, have their fingers in that party still and move it around like a ventriloquist?
You mean including Asa Hutchinson?
Right. Oh God.
Like, think about that. Okay, you've got like
Lonely guy.
Newt Gingrich. That's the only old Republican I can think of that consistently shows his face. Karl Rove.
Well, I mean, there are a number of other pundits / former lawmakers, etc. But I get your point, and
Main
obviously,
stagers. I'm talking about main stagers.
I know the Bush politics and the Trump politics
Who
are completely divergent.
Republicans pull out?
Mm-hmm.
You know, but that's because it's a party of people, new ideas. You know, they're
Well,
not
same
stuck.
in the '60s with the Rockefeller Republicans and the Goldwater Republicans. They
Right.
were divergent
Yeah.
as well. They were populist.
My point is that you've still got the Obamas and the Clintons who take up so much airspace.
Right.
And you have to wonder, like, why it is that the Bushes don't involve themselves with that. Like, they served their country, they did their time, and now they're kind of off in the sunset.
That's a good one, Don.
Whereas you've got these other two that are constantly out there speaking, constantly out there trying to up their profile, make more money,
Trying to be relevant.
make more money, make more money, make more
See
money.
Bill Clinton endorse Donald Trump's economic policy by accident.
Yeah.
That
Did
was
you
too
see the
funny.
part where somebody where he was talking about, will this party, will we get will we be good for the kids and education? And somebody goes, no. And he goes, well hold on, maybe.
Hey,
If
hang
this
on,
bum
hang on.
And I was just like, oh my God, did somebody just yell no that the party wasn't going to help out kids in education?
That is how bad the
Well,
Chicago Teachers Union have screwed up education in the last 15 years, and they have a stranglehold on the last 3 administrations, 2 by the Star Wars character that used to be mayor that looks like the fish in Star Wars, Lori Lightfoot, and then little bozo Brandon Johnson, which they pull up by his hair, which is why it peaks up like a 28-year-old. Right, and he's really in his late 40s. That's how bad it is in Chicago. So I can imagine that people are completely pissed off. Yes, sir.
I was going about Chicago in particular because it had been going in my head all week long, and this is why I get so passionate about why I'm no longer a Democrat and my hopes for what the Republicans can do. Chicago is the embodiment of what's wrong, what's morally bankrupt about the Democrat Party.
Yep.
Look at the education system in that city. The Democrats control the state legislature. They control the city of Chicago. And I look at these statistics in these school systems in these large urban areas run by Democrats, a lot of black Democrats in terms of the cities, and it's outrageous. And it's like these kids in Chicago, I think it's like 75% of them, 3 out of 4, are not performing to their basic grade levels in math and science and English.
Yep. At an 8th grade level. Yeah.
And on top of it, the head of the Chicago Teachers Union came out the other day, and when she was asked about the bad test scores, she said, and I think I'm quoting directly, that test scores are junk science created by white supremacists. Now, she's the head of the teachers union. That is what she said. Oh, by the way, she's also the same one who took put her kids into private
Private
schools.
school. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, when are
Shocker.
black Democrats going to get it that these people only want their votes? They're not going to give them a damn thing in terms of what's really valuable to people and their families and everything else. I mean, nothing says that more than what I've seen in Chicago.
And that is the point. It's so frustrating. Like I don't get what people see in the Democrat Party
Yeah.
as it is today. I don't like to see all those people cheering at the top. Like it boggles my mind that you could fill up an arena of people that would willingly vote for people that say things like that consistently. Like it just,
I know
and
it.
that's why I have the fear that I do, that we're still an emotional country and not a logical one. But
Well, and that's why both parties are also shrinking in their majorities, and
Mm-hmm.
independents constantly are the deciding votes that make national and in other federal level elections, and in many cases at the local level. You can go really far down the ballot with that same argument. So because people are like fed up, don't relate, I'm going to be an independent. I'm going to just choose the person, do my homework, and then that last 15% of the vote is where all of that comes from in generality. I
well,
want to make a couple of points real quick because I have to get off here in just a little bit, but some of the really key issues that are going to have to be addressed in detail. Trump did the border visit yesterday, which was phenomenal. He got a little far afield and then came back. At the same time, while the Cochise County sheriff and the FBI were hunting down a person to kill him. Are you kidding me? You can't even make this up for TV, this crap, right? So we did the border thing. The border is going to be huge in terms of human cost and capital cost, as I mentioned. But the explosion that Harris is going to have to deal with, you guys, are twofold. One is the economic plan and how you're going to make America better. You can't escape that, and you can't push things off to November 6th, right? And the second is taxation. If you're going to tax income, cap gains, corporate, and Don, what's the phrase they're using? It's not presumed income. It's unrealized gains.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Unrealized gains.
Right.
that's what I
You are
wanted to talk to you about.
then,
Okay.
and you asked me the question. I'll finish here in a second. You are going to put such a damper on the economic forecast of the country, let alone the ripple effect in capital markets all over the globe, that it will be as though you went one step forward and 10 steps back, not 2 to 1, but 10 to 1.
Mhm.
And you cannot have that because all it is platitudes. It's not a real economic plan, and you can't get business people and other folks that drive donors and make elections possible to get behind you. And that's why I'm starting to sense, colleagues of mine are too, that people are just slowly backing away from. Okay, you had your party, put the flowers down and take off the little ceremonial gown and headdress, and you got to go out and talk specifics. And when she fails to do that on the 10th, and she fails to do it a week later, and the week after that, and the week after that, and Congress leaves in October for a month, you're going to see a 51 Trump, 48 or 49 Harris, and I believe that she will stay right there. It's going to be a 2 or 3 point race like that in all reality, right? But and the last thing, of course, is taking care of our military. You know, we lost 13 kids 4 years ago because of lousy planning and poor execution of leaving Afghanistan. Never should have happened. I urge all of you in the audience, everybody here on the panel, really look at my friend Lynn Mara's art on Afghanistan. She's a wonderful artist, lives on Long Island. I love her to death. But she's really captured in those images of those 13 service members who they are through art. It's just absolutely beautiful. But anyway, Ricky, what were you going to ask me, buddy, about taxes and economic plan?
Well, Kamala unveiled her new economic plan, or leaked it. $5 trillion in new taxes, with a T, the largest tax rate in the history of the world. Not America, not from the last 20 years, the history of the world, people. Yep. Okay? And you hear these terms thrown around that nobody understands because most people are economic dunces. They're not in depth to economics, how markets work, how investment banking works, etc., etc. Now, they're able to, Kamala, use the same old taglines that Democrat dummies have been latching on to for a while, which is tax the rich. Poor people. The rich are greedy. They take too much money. They don't pay their fair share. Now, how much of the government,
that includes Hunter Biden, by the way. Just want to put that in.
And the Obamas and Beyonce and blah, 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 blah.
Who didn't show up. That was fake.
Yeah. So, how much of government spending, what percentage is subsidized by the top 1%? How much of our spending?
Over 50%.
It's yes, and it tops out at that number, roughly.
Okay, so half of our spending comes from just the top 1%. And how much from the top 10%? Do you know that?
Couldn't tell you that right off the top of my head.
Those are numbers.
I want to check the top 1% because I think that's actually lower, because you run out of money with these non-realistic prescriptions from the Democrats. It's like you can't tax them all. What happened in the 90s, what happened in the 2000s and in part of the 90s is we had such a high tax rate here and we weren't balancing budgets, and then Clinton fucked up with gun control. We took over in 94. We got 5 balanced budgets out of him, right? Is they were going to other countries. I mean, Microsoft was headquartered in Ireland at one point, okay? Because their tax rate was 8 and ours was 13, right? So companies will move with their feet and they'll take their, employees with them. Just ask California and Tesla, right? And Toyota, that's now moving to Texas from California. That's what we're facing having happen again. And in a global market with global conglomerates, they can't shift capital and jobs around that easily without it hitting their bottom line. And so, again, that's why I'm starting to sense a backing off of her, because most of what she's proposing is unrealistic and it's too expensive.
Yeah. So these are all terms that most people...
No, it'll end up taking their job away and they will end up living in a goddamn trailer park or in their car. They won't have a job.
And they, that's what happens when you don't understand economics.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but you know what you can do? You can just look at what's happening in California with small businesses.
Yep.
They make it $20 an
There's
hour,
a million
and
examples of why it doesn't work.
and mom and pop pizza shop
Okay.
has been around for 60 years. Bye-bye, gone.
Okay.
80% of the businesses in this country are small businesses.
Okay.
So
So
that's
what is tax revenue?
from
What
individuals or corporations.
as a whole?
It
Like
comes from 2 sources. So it comes from FICA off of, payroll, from individuals, and then there are corporate
which is
taxes as
called
well.
what? Which is called income
So
tax?
they're payroll taxes that
Mm.
then
So
go
that's not
into the
income tax?
treasury.
So
So
that's
one is
not income
income,
tax?
the other is corporate, and
Oh
then
my,
you have personal taxation on investments, houses, equities, etcetera.
that's payroll tax? Houses?
No, one is payroll, that's FICA, that comes out of your paycheck. Then you have corporate
Is
taxes,
another
and then
term for
then
payroll
you have
tax income
investment taxes.
tax? Yes or no?
Say again?
Is another word for payroll tax income tax?
No.
No.
No,
So
no.
what's income tax then?
Income from, a corporation or an individual, you have to be specific because
It,
it hits both.
yeah, you have somebody that has a job and part of their check gets taken out.
Well, I'll do it this way because I'm all 3. I own a business, I
Mhm.
pay corporate taxes, I get a paycheck, I pay income from that, into IRS, and then I also have investments, and I have to pay taxes on those gains, at a rate. So there's 3 types of investment.
There's a million different type of taxes. I get that. I was just merely trying to get a quick answer about income tax or what tax revenue is. Isn't tax revenue just the amount of money we take in for taxes to pay for everything?
Not necessarily,
Not necessarily.
no.
So what is that called then?
It depends on what category you're talking about.
So how does the government get money to spend?
People pay taxes
Okay.
from different sources into the IRS. The 3 I just described are the most
Yes.
common.
So tax revenue isn't the accumulation of all of that?
Not necessarily, but
Not
I understand where you're going. So let's, for the sake of simplicity, let's just say yes.
okay. Well, the point is that not enough people understand where the money comes from
Mhm.
that we
Well, they're
spend.
also usually only taxed
And the
one way.
fact that we can't get a short, quick answer is
Mhm.
why they are going to be able to bamboozle and swindle people because not enough people are willing to say, well, that's tax revenue. They want to go, well, no, it comes into this and that and the
Well,
other. And it's
50 years ago, the
not
tax
what
code
it
was about
is,
200 pages. Now
like
it's 13,000.
sometimes you got to make things simple for stupid people.
No, they do it on purpose to
You
make it
don't have
hard.
to make things simpler for
No,
people
the
to
tax code
understand.
is made
That's a
difficult on
terrible
purpose.
communication skill. That is
No,
awful communication. To
no.
not change the way you speak to help people understand is a
Yeah, but
terrible
that's
way
not
to
what I'm talking
communicate.
about. The
That's
tax code is
egotistical. That's saying, no, I don't
the
want to
tax
change
code
who
is
I am
made
because
difficult
you're
on
too stupid
purpose.
and I'm going to talk down to you. I'm
Mm-mm.
not going to change the way I speak. You are
No, that's
too
not what
dumb
I'm
to
talking
understand.
about.
That's your fault.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is the tax code is made difficult on purpose. So 50 years ago, as I said a second ago, it was like 300 pages. Now it's 15,000 pages. So they
So
make it
what is
difficult on purpose.
unrealized capital gains? Since
Say
we
again?
since we can't figure out an easy way to say you pay taxes and that's
Mhm.
the money that gets spent, we don't have a term for it because tax revenue isn't good enough. So there's actually no word for how the pool of money, what that pool of money is. There's no term for it, apparently.
Generically, you can call it tax revenue, but it comes
There
from
you
different
go.
sources.
So
So if you want to be generic, that's the easy way to look at it.
there you go.
But it's
Generic.
not specific.
That's what average
So
voters
what is your point? Now that
I'm
we're
trying
getting
to
too far into this
understand something,
diatribe of
but
yours, so
instead we got into
what's
this
the point?
debate on why we can't get to just tax revenue as
Because
a
it isn't just
answer.
tax revenue, but I'll
Yes,
keep it simple.
because
So
there you go.
what's
And
your
that's
point?
what I asked for was simple.
But
So
you
what's
can't just talk about one generically. So go ahead and ask your question.
okay? What's unrealized capital gains? What is
On
unrealized
what?
capital gains?
On what?
Just there's if you look up unrealized capital gains,
Investment?
what is the definition?
Well, that could be
Unrealized capital gains on an
Yes, I
investment.
understand that there's
right.
different entities where it can
Okay.
come in. Is
Rick,
there even
the
could
problem you're
you
having
find a
is
definition for it?
you're not asking the right
Oh
question.
my god. Okay.
Unrealized capital
What
gains on an investment like my E-Trade account in X equities that I have, I'm not going to go into that in detail, are investment dollars that have yet been realized as a gain. And so I don't have to pay taxes on it. When
there
they've
you
been
go.
realized as a
Why is that
gain in,
so hard?
hang on a second, so you can actually listen to the answer instead of talk.
Well,
In a
you would
calendar
just get to
year,
the answer.
in a calendar year, then it becomes a realized gain at or before April 15th of every year.
Right.
Or as my accountant likes to call it, every quarter. So you stay ahead of any penalties and yada, 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 and all that crap. So what's the purpose of the
So
question?
what do unrealized capital gains affect?
Well, they don't affect
What do they
anything
affect?
because they're
What
not
are some of the
realized.
most important things that unrealized capital gains might affect from the average voter?
They don't affect anything because they're not realized gains. So what's the purpose of the question?
So it's not important. Unrealized capital gains aren't important. You can't tax them.
They aren't taxed currently. So are you
But
talking about Kamala
somebody
Harris'
wants to do
proposal?
that. Doesn't somebody want to do that?
Yeah, so here's
Yeah.
what they want to
So
do.
what might some of those things
Okay,
be
so
that would
here's what
be
they want to do
affected?
now that I've been able to, in the 7.5 minutes we've got left, I'll tell you what that is.
Thank you.
What the Harris people want to do, which you cannot do with any degree of certainty, is go, oh, Mark and Rick and Don went into and put an LLC together and they went in and invested in NVIDIA. And NVIDIA's stock went from $200 to $1,100 over X period. And they made 380% of their original investment. So we're going to take to 21% right now. She wants to make it 28.
28%. Mm-hmm.
21, or let's just call it 28 in her fantasy world. We want to take 28% of what they actually made, and then here's the part that's not going to work and is illegal. We're we're going to presuppose that markets in the future are going to be this way. And anybody that can do that has pointy ears and can grab you by the shoulder and you go into a paralysis. His name is Spock. He's a fictional character. Okay. Because nobody can do that. And so the question really back to you is, do you think the federal government's going to give you back a check if they're wrong?
No.
Because they're not. That's why this policy is ridiculous. And so the real question that you should be asking is, what will that do to capital markets, which is what I was talking about earlier, is you will roil, disrupt, and upend capital markets all over the globe with shit like that.
Yeah.
It will be unbelievably Titanic level messy, and it'll never happen. And again, that's why I'm starting to see people back away from her.
And that's why if anybody during these upcoming debates ask Kamala Harris a specific without getting into the esoterica of unrealized this or that. It really comes down to all the things that she proposes directly or indirectly. How do you make that work? She doesn't have an answer for any of that. She's
She
got
doesn't understand
platitudes
economics either.
and talking points, but she doesn't have a specific answer. That'll be
Mhm.
her undoing.
Yep.
The whole
Yep.
point of this exercise, and I'm sorry for being contrite.
I didn't like it.
I know you didn't, and you didn't like it.
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
This
buddy.
is the difficult part is conveying the message so that people will understand it. Like you guys give,
They won't. No fucking way.
but that's the job of Republicans to do.
Correct.
And
Right.
you right there did not want to do it. And
Well,
that
I was actually
problem
just
in
talking about the
itself,
categories. I know what you were getting at. I wanted to hear you
but
say it.
you
But that's okay.
did not get there.
I'm
Like
not gonna
it
be
shouldn't
I'm
be
not gonna be out on the
original.
stuff. I don't
Like
care.
we're still spending time on it. You're still not getting
You're
what
still
I'm saying.
talking.
This is insane. Like, I don't understand why it's bad to try to simplify things.
You get two alphas in the room done and
That's
your
a
Right.
beta
beta
move. That
personality
is a
goes, yeah,
beta
fuck you
move.
guys.
If you're an alpha, you could help people understand something that they don't understand
Yeah, I know. That's
in
what
a
I do
way that
every
they
day.
understand it. An
Quite
alpha
well, actually.
would do that. A beta would say, "No, I'm
No, it's
prideful.
okay.
You need to be smarter,
Would you like
and
a
you need to
sandwich?
understand it how I say it."
Right. Yeah.
That's the
Um,
point. Is
the
average American voters don't understand this stuff, nor do
and
they want
you know
to.
what the pivot's gonna be, dude, is
Yeah.
they're gonna hear her go blah, 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 like that. She's gonna sound like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? And they're gonna go, "What the fuck did she say? That's gonna do what? I'm gonna pay more for eggs? Fuck that." And they're gonna go, "Pfft, Donald Trump's my boy," right?
Well,
Because in that debate, disproportionately, you're gonna see her try and point at him as a criminal and call him this, that, and the other thing. And Trump's I I am almost certain Trump will sit there like this, fingers folded, going, listening, right? Whether they have him standing or sitting or whatever the hell they're gonna do. And same playbook as he did with Biden. Let her talk.
well, have you
Let her
ever heard
explain.
of the proverb, "Give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime." I'm playing the long game here. You
Mhm.
want to hinge it all on, she's going to say jarble, people aren't going to care.
Yeah.
People need to understand economics and how it works so that when they hear take from the rich, give to the poor, and evil billionaires and rich pay their fair share,
Mhm.
these are rallying cries
Including
for
Hunter.
people who don't understand how economics works. And
Well,
they're able to
here's
sell them.
where
Look,
I'll diverge from that. You see
here,
the interviews of the barbershops in Chicago?
yeah,
You guys see those?
yeah.
Yep.
People understand that Kamala and the Democrats haven't done shit for them. They're
Yeah,
there.
but will they take that same idea and realize it's bad in 4 years, in 8 years, in
I
12?
just care about the next 74 days, but my
And
answer to
that's
that
the
question is
difference, is
yes.
you only care about 74 days, I care about the future, and I
Well,
think
we gotta get past
America
this
would be
election
better
first.
served if people understood some of
Mhm.
this stuff that they're voting on. I
I don't
don't think that's a
disagree.
bad
Well,
thing. Like, why is
Uh,
it a bad thing to educate people on
Don,
well,
what
this?
were you gonna say?
yeah. I was just gonna say. I mean, because I have these discussions all the time with my wife, and I make the point that at the end of the day, and I think politicians certainly used to understand this better. It's like this is really about people who get up and go to work every day, and and and
Mhm.
and the policy folks who want to talk in terms that they don't understand, they're going to ignore it to some degree, but it's a bottom line thing for them. When they go to the gas station, when they go to the grocery store,
Yep.
that's what they're saying. You can tell them anything. You can educate them on whatever you want. At the end of the day, if they don't think they're better off or they're worse off because they
Yep.
can't get as many eggs or butter or what have you, and you got politicians telling them other things, they're going to ignore it. Now, the balancing point is going to be, look, the Democrats are going to vote Democrat no matter what. The Republicans are going to vote Republican no matter what. The key question ultimately is going to be, in those states that matter, can you get the persuadables to
Can you
vote
peel off the independent?
Republican?
Yep.
Because the case is easy to make. It's not that complicated.
Do you guys
And
have
again,
do any of you guys have a Reddit account? Do you ever go on Reddit?
yeah,
Every once in a while, I'll go on there and I've got the slash Europe or whatever it is. It shows what's going on in different European cities. And there are these images pretty consistently, like weekly, that come up, and it's a picture in different countries, Romania, Brussels, wherever, right? Of this is what 50 or 60 euros buys for a week in Germany or Italy or whatever. And it's a de minimis amount of food. So it's a small amount of protein and some carbs and milk and butter and stuff like that. And so the global impact of the energy recession that was created by this administration that has subsequently affected everything we do, everything, is felt all over the globe. And that's why, again, guys, her economic plan, the fake jobs, the higher taxes are a non starter to get into the White House in the next 74 days. And people will take all this jibber jabber that Rick was talking about that goes in their ears from debates and shit like that and go, that's going to cost me what? Am I going to still have a job? Are
Well,
butter, eggs, energy, and groceries going to cost more or the same? Is it going to get any better? And if it's not, they ain't again. They vote for what they're against, right? Not for what they're for.
I wish people, or I wish somebody would just ask people that support the AOC Met Gala dress, tax the rich, um, this question, which is, would you rather have more money in your pocket but rich people get richer, or would you rather that the rich, quote unquote, pay their fair share but you get more poor? Because that's essentially what it is, isn't it? Like, those are the only two options.
Mhm.
Either the rich get richer and we get richer along with them, just not as astronomically,
Right.
or they get more poor and we get more poor. Like, those are the two options. And
Nope.
somewhere
Yep.
somebody has convinced people that taking money away from rich people is going to somehow give them a better life. And
It just sounds better to the ear, but it's
right.
becoming a tired phrase, you guys.
It
I mean, you know what I always say about bad policy. I mean, bad policy is bad outcomes. And the policy prescriptions that these cats are proposing, although we don't have any details except for the rhetoric that came out of their mouth and their surrogates, are going to crush the global as well as current domestic economy. You will have more of the same for 4 more years and then some, and we can't afford that. And that's
the reason I
why I
was
don't think
talking
it's going to
about
get.
not to cut you off, sorry, but
No,
the
no,
reason
no.
I was trying to get to the tax revenue thing was because of the way that we know about markets, investments. Like,
Hmm?
if we tax the crap out of corporations, people, investors are going to take their product elsewhere.
correct.
We see it in the States. You talked about how companies have moved from California to Texas because taxes are better. And people have to understand this on a larger scale. That money is going to be taken out of the country. We are going
100%.
to have investments and less
Mhm.
money to spend on frivolous things.
So
And
one way you can explain it to your friends in the future, Rick, is the middle ring is a corporation, which the corporations make up 11% of total employment in the country. I need to
All
check that.
right.
For some reason I think that's wrong. But a disproportionate number, 80+% is small businesses. Well, you've got I'll just say Boeing. You've got Boeing in Seattle. Okay, well, then you have the suppliers to Boeing that are all over the United States. So in the defense industry and the aerospace industry, they've made sure over the last 40 years that every supplier that has anything to do with any of them are in every congressional district in the country. What a shocker, right? Jobs. Then outside of that other ring, you have the dry cleaners, the diners, the gas stations, the stationery stores, the ancillary suppliers to all of those small businesses that rely on those employees to buy things at XYZ locations and restaurants and so forth. You start screwing around with people's livelihoods or putting a crunch on whether corporations can hire, those other jobs go away. And you saw that in California with what they did with the restaurant industry. You're seeing it elsewhere. It's just too damn expensive to operate and keep jobs. And it's like, hey, you want to come? Move to Texas. It's the same thing over and over. It is not a coincidence economically in a free market system that we're talking about the same damn thing we've been talking about since before I was born.
Yeah, I
It is.
mean, nothing's really changed in terms of economics. I mean, they will never change, and as long as Republicans stick to the fundamentals
Yep.
and talk about jobs in real terms, Democrats can talk all they want, in flowery language and everything else about what they promise they might be able to do. The question is, and the reality is, they've never delivered on it. And I think that's going to be an issue in this campaign, this election. And to Rick's point, I think as we go along and get further down the road, and the Democrats and the far left push themselves more and more towards, government control and socialism, that'll be their ultimate undoing. Because to quote a very famous economist, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. And Margaret Thatcher got it right. It's common sense.
Mhm.
And all Republicans have to do is continue to remind. Again, you're not going to get some people, they're going to vote Democrat no matter what. But it's those persuadables, and certainly those in these battleground states, that are going to have to think really hard. Like, yeah, okay, Kamala Harris is a woman. I want a woman president. But oh, by the way, I'd like to be able to have a decent life and make enough money so I'm comfortable. And I may not be able to get that with these guys.
Right.
So it's you got to put it to them in those terms and force them to that balancing act, and then see where they come out.
Now, what
I
did
think.
Margaret Thatcher's parents do for a living, Don?
I have no idea.
They were a grocer. A
Oh,
grocer.
well, there you go.
She lived above the grocery store. I've got an interview coming up with a congressman in the next few weeks. When I have the date, I'll let you know. His family in Ohio have had grocery stores for 100 years in underserved communities, and
Hmm.
so we're going to talk about this price gouging bullshit that she put out there, which is another myth. That's another conversation altogether.
Yeah, I did have one other question in terms
Okay.
of, have you guys ever worked a sales job where you
Yeah.
you
What do you think I do for a living? Yeah, but yes, I did.
so
I have my whole
you
life.
make a sale and you get a chunk of money?
Hmm.
How
Well,
does
come
that
on.
get taxed? What tax bracket does that fall under?
So that's realized income,
Yeah.
no different than a salary. So you
So
get your base and then you get a commission on top of it. It's money. And
Yeah.
then they look at that as a total number of what income you brought in that calendar year and go
it's realized income.
100%.
Yep.
So
Real income is what it's referred to
yeah.
as.
So what is carried interest?
Carried interest is typically interest on I'm going to use a farmer as an example, or someone who has a commercial piece of real estate. Carried interest is something that when you owe money on $100,000 tractor that you just bought for your farm, you have a depreciation schedule of how much value that's worth over time, and the interest of 8% when you first bought it is not the same 10 years from now in
Mhm.
terms of value,
Mhm.
even though you may have a contract that carries over for 10 years. What carried interest means is you can take that and move that into another calendar year and pay taxes on it later.
Yep.
You can
Which
carry the interest rate and move it forward so you're not paying it all in one chunk right then and there in
yeah.
a tax year.
Now, why is it that investment bankers and equity firms, when they do their 220, which is 2% surcharge for their services, and then their 20% nut after, an investment, let's say they got the 6-8% hurdle. Why is that different than commission? Like, isn't that just commission? Why do they get to pay a lower tax rate? They get to go into a special tax category for essentially the same thing. They made a sale. They made a sale.
Because they help write the rules because they're part of the financial
That you
services
see,
industry.
and right there, that's where Republicans, because Trump tried to address this with his 3-year plan.
Mhm.
Like, this is something that bipartisan people could be like, why are teachers and firefighters paying a higher tax? Well, I guess that wouldn't be the
But
right example.
No, it's
Why
not the
would a
right
tax
salesman,
rate.
why would a
no,
car salesman have
yeah.
to pay a higher tax rate than an investment banker for doing the same thing?
Well, think about this. It's not the same thing. I understand the degree of similarity. So let's use Trump for a minute, commercial real estate.
Yeah.
You go to a bank, you go to JP Morgan Chase, you say, Jamie Dimon, I need to borrow $150 million to build this building in the following location, right? And he goes, sure, Don, no problem. Here's the term sheet. And he goes, great. Well, uh, actually, I'll use a real example. Donald Trump put his bid in 2005 for the old post office pavilion in
Mhm.
Washington, D.C., which ultimately became Trump Hotel. 2005. Its soft opening was in October of 2016.
Mhm.
Okay, so you have an 11-year period where he made no money.
Yeah.
Everything just went out the door on this project. Everything went out the door. So as you aren't taking from revenue that you're generating with inside your corporation and continuing to dump it in this project that you hope will pay off and pay money, so you're spinning a lot of plates here with a lot of money on top of it. You
Mhm.
want to take as much of that investment and push that as far out into the future as you possibly can before you have to pay real taxes on it and
Mhm.
are generating revenue and so forth and so on. And so that's different than if you or I worked for ITT USTS in the 80s in Los Angeles, and I got paid a base salary. This is right after the modified final judgment when they closed down the Bell companies. Um, and I called people. I was a corporate marketing and sales guy that called corporations during the day and got them to switch their corporate long distance. And then in the evening, I went home to my apartment in Hermosa Beach on the Strand, and I picked up the fucking white pages and just called people. And it was like they were giving me money because the compensation package, Rick, was ridiculous. I was
Mhm.
making a boatload of shekels in the 80s. Okay. And that's because they were trying to drive and create a new market. I didn't give a shit. Didn't matter. I was making money. And so that direct fee for service, if you will, is different than an investment banker giving Trump 150 million and getting repaid, right? And a business person like Trump, if you will, commercial real estate, et cetera. So it's a little different.
Yeah. I, I get kind of that. So I guess the question would be, let's say I buy a house and then I flip it. Okay.
Mhm.
I make a profit. Am I paying on that the realized income tax, or am I going to get the special carried interest tax?
It actually depends. Again, used to be 400 pages, now it's 15,000 pages. The tax
Yes.
code used to
In mind that
depends on
I
if
put
that's
money
written.
into the house.
It
You
depends
know,
on if
I'm
you're
taking
written into
money,
that
I'm
part of the code.
rebuilding, and I'm refurbishing and doing all that stuff. And but would the average American be able to get that carried interest?
No,
No.
And that therein
absolutely.
lies the problem. Because, and I don't know necessarily the benefits economically of these giant billion-trillion-dollar hedge funds getting this special tax on essentially the same thing. I don't know how, if they got taxed the same as we do, how
No.
that would affect the markets per se. But from my vantage point, it looks a little bit like uh, a kickback scheme.
Well, it's Bobby Axelrod in billions. Okay, I mean it is. That's
And
exactly the way
and
it's
that's
just
why
put in put in 10 million and get out 100 million.
yeah. And I exactly. And I
And
think
you
this
and
is
you
where
pay you pay on the 10, and then
yeah,
you carry the 100 for a
Right.
decade from now, so you keep fucking making money. And with interest rates for 13 years being at 0, believe me,
Right.
you're
That's good.
making money hand over
Mhm.
fist.
Yep.
yeah, you're making a lot of money. And I think
Another reason why Kamala Harris is not getting elected, because the fucking taxes are gonna be too high and it's called
yeah,
LIBOR. LIBOR is gonna be too expensive. This is what the feds lend money to the banks for. And then
keep
I
they've got
in
bigger
mind,
rate on top of that.
yeah, keep
I
in
have
mind of the go ahead, Don.
no just to say I not to depart too much from this discussion on taxes, but I have a tax question that if put to Kamala Harris, I think would cause her eyes to just to go like deer in the headlights, and her
Over.
head would explode. And it's a simple question based on her rhetoric and the rhetoric of the Democrats. The Democrats have proposed getting rid of the so-called Trump tax cuts, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, written into those Trump tax cuts, as I recall, was something called a cap on salt tax deductions.
100%.
So my question for the vice president would be, do you want to get rid of every element with regard to taxation of the Trump tax cuts, including those state and local tax deductions, those caps on salt deductions?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think she would understand the question to begin with. I don't think she knows how to answer that question because the Democrats are hypocrites. They
Mm-hmm.
want the capping salt deductions was a great middle class
It's fantastic.
portion of those tax cuts. So
Yep.
now you're telling me, Democrats, you want to get rid of this thing that benefited the middle class? Because now
Mhm.
you're talking like, and I know certainly in states like New York and Illinois and California,
Yeah.
they want to raise those caps. If not, get rid of them all altogether.
Yep.
But
You know, the
that's
other metric, you guys, is that in the 80s, Reagan's first term,
mhm,
maybe 25%, 20% of taxpayers were in the stock market.
yeah,
Mhm,
Now it's upwards of 68%.
yep,
mhm.
So with all these taxes, again, you're going to hammer the living daylights out of everything from grandma to pension funds to 401ks and on down the line. And will people learn that those specifics in the next 30 days? Holy shnikes! Are they going to turn toward what they are against and go, sorry, we're not with you? And they're going to go for the other guy. Probably this dude. Not that guy. Definitely not her. Her. Right there, right there, right there.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys indulging me in
No, no worries.
that's a good
information
discussion.
No, it's
because
great.
it's really important. The reason I brought in the carried interest thing was because I thought it might be, since Trump already attempted to tackle this, he could deflect some of those.
Mm.
I'm a protector of the billionaire class,
Right.
the AOCs and Bernie Sanders of the world that say the rich need to pay their fair share, and uh, Team Trump is only for enriching his rich friends. Um, ignoring the fact that everybody gets a boost in that process. But
Mhm.
I was thinking along the lines of, if that was highlighted, that it could show, hey, I'm doing my part to try to close the gap. And as long as there's no real bad market fluctuation, not a lot of people leaving and it hurting the economy more. Like, I get it's going to take a hit.
Mhm.
How much the hit, I don't know, because we haven't tried it or done it. Um, Maybe you could raise the carried interest rate a little bit, raise it a point, raise it to, you don't need to go directly to the income route.
Mhm.
But somebody was talking about the realized gains one, or unrealized gains, is it's a slippery slope. Like, how, you know, when does it start becoming 401ks, and
Well,
how's
there's
it?
no predictability in saying what markets are gonna do tomorrow, let alone 6 months from now, and the government is not in the business of being able to do that with any degree of certainty either. So
Yeah, like
it's ridiculous
farmers
on its face.
farmers are going to get hammered. Let's say you buy a
Every
plot of land, and
everybody can get hammered.
all of these new age kids that want to buy land and start their own organic farms. Now, I
Artisanal mushroom
imagine
salesman.
the cost of what that would take, but you get the land. Let's say you
Right.
buy it for $200,000, and within 5 years, it's $1 million, and every year it goes up 200,000. Well, you're not going to be paying the tax rate of what you bought it for. You're going to be paying the next year. You're going to be paying a $300,000, then a 500,000, then a 700,000, then an 1100, or a 1100, or a million one.
1.1 million. Yep.
Yeah, you're going to be paying that tax on it, even though you haven't sold that property yet. And just
Right.
because you can trade on that, uh,
So, one of the things, and this is what I appreciate about you, is you bring the regular guy perspective to things too. Um, Earlier this week, after we got back from vacation, a technician was over here at the house. Really nice young man, and he was doing a maintenance thing, looking at our generator to make sure everything was up to snuff. He was sitting at the table, the breakfast table in the kitchen, just off the kitchen, and Fox was on, news was on, Trump came on, and he goes, "You know what?" He figured out we were Republicans like really quickly, and he is too. He goes, "I remember back in 2017 when Trump came in, my income almost automatically went up like 8, 10%. Now, that was how long ago? 7
Mhm.
years ago? And you've got some 31, maybe 32-year-old young man who does not make a boatload of shekels, right? Working for a company that is the maintenance company, and he remembers that. I think, Rick and Don, that whether you're in a barber shop in the south side of Chicago, whether you are in Tucumcari, New Mexico, or Seattle, or anywhere else, certainly in Arizona. And by the way, I give props again to the Supreme Court after what they did on the voting thing in Arizona. So thank God for that, Rick. That people are going to look at those brass tacks issues, what it costs to put in the tank, what it costs to put in the trunk, et cetera, and that's what they're going to go to sleep at night the day before the election or whenever they decide to vote early or what have you. And I think, just again, in the time we've got left, that's for me where I rely, that bank shot with voters is what I rely on them getting at. And I think because things have been so onerous and expensive that, man, they can't get rid of that smell, right? But they remember how good it was.
yeah,
So
you,
contrary to what everything you heard at the DNC, can't go back to what, right? And that's where I land right now, and it's going to be really fun watching it week over week on Read the Room as things develop. And she has to get specific.
Yeah.
and he's down doing what he has to do.
You know what they should do at voting stations is they should have an egg stand and be like, we're having an egg sale. Eggs, a dozen eggs is 50 cents. And
Hmm.
they should sell these eggs and, get a nice little line going. And about the third customer, you charge that person $10 for a carton of eggs. And they go, what the hell? It's 50 cents. And you go, no, no, no. You have to pay for the deal we gave to all these other people. So lucky one who gets to pay that $10. But keep in mind that the next two people, maybe three, are going to get 50-cent eggs for that. And
But they
you
have
make
you to thank for it.
you make it real for people so that they understand exactly what these type of economic policies mean.
I think they do. I have confidence that people do, and they have to be reminded. And we have 74 days to keep doing that. And again, campaigns are about contrasts. And the more that Trump keeps contrasting what Biden and Harris have done the last 4 years, man, people are going to go, yeah, when that dude was here, he may be a loudmouth, but I could afford X, Y, and Z. And I think people are going to gravitate to that level of thinking, just like this young man in the house the other day.
Yeah,
That's my 2 cents. That's my 2 cents.
I love it. And
Don, what about you? We're going to finish up here,
Well,
brothers.
again, I keep coming back to what I've always been saying, and it really does come down. Look, the Democrat Party has become infested with these bi-coastal elites. They don't. They're mostly connected to government. Never really worked a hard job. Never necessarily owned a business, and they're going to be the ones that make policy to affect everybody else. And particularly when it's this type of policy, I just think people are going to reject it. Simple
Hmm.
as that.
Ricky, what do you think?
I think that we're still in the phase of political theater, kids. And I
Mhm.
think this race is completely hinging on the debate.
Yep.
If Trump does not keep his cool and gets agitated like I do when people don't understand just how ridiculous that woman is, I think it could be a bad scenario. But I do want to give uh, Team Trump a shout out for his podcast with Theo Vaughn the other day, taking
Hmm.
a little
Yep.
advice from me. He's hitting up some of the heavy hitters, and he needs to keep going on comedians' podcasts, entertainment podcasts, you
Yeah.
know, with the ones that are brave enough to do it, like Spade and Carvey. I think he
Oh, I'd
should
love to see him on Fly on the Wall, bro. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Yeah.
in that, he needs to hit those people up hard.
He needs to be here.
Yeah,
All right.
that would.
Oh,
Oh, I'd have a blast with old Trumpy pants.
We love him. You
I
guys are great.
him.
You guys are great. You guys have a wonderful weekend. We will obviously be back next week, potentially twice next week because it's going to start getting heat, baby, hot and heavy.
Well, I won't hold my breath for that second show, but we will be ready for that Friday show for
All
sure.
right.
But I would love to see a second show because you're right, things are heating up right now,
Oh,
and
dude, it's
you
getting hot.
have all the inside track information that people like me need to hear so that we can stay in the know and pass it on.
That's right. Sounds like a plan. All right, brothers. We will
alrighty.
talk.
All
Have a
right.
good one. See ya.